My pen name is Alice Falling, inspired by my late grandmother. I grew up on the prairies in Saskatchewan, Canada. I had seizures right at birth, which offered an alternative explanation to my health issues as I began to grow up. I had anxiety-induced migraines that made me vomit from a very young age, whether I was scared about putting my head underwater in swim class or going for a sleepover. I experienced childhood sexual abuse, CSA, as a young child, and I'm asking you to respect my privacy on the details surrounding it. You don't need to learn the details to hear my message, a message that we need preventative education for both children and all adults who have contact with them. I grew up in the 80s, before CSA even had a name in most circles. I am now 46 years old, and I am just starting to move on from my past and turn it into something powerful. We have resources at our fingertips that aren't being fully utilized. I think learning about the effects of CSA is crucial in emphasizing the urgency of doing prevention work. I wrote a book, Nobody Talks About It, Preventing and Living with the Effects of Childhood Sexual Abuse. I share my story of recovery, including my battles with addiction and mental illness that were triggered by the abuse. You'll do almost anything to make the flashbacks stop and make the pain go away. It's been 8 years since I've been able to hold down a job or attend school. I spent a great deal amount of time in the psychiatric ward at the hospital, and with the stigma attached to that place, I had to work through a lot of shame. A number of years ago, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, a diagnosis that was not easy to take. I lost a 20-year friendship over them not believing me that their spouse ridiculed me for being diagnosed with it. It blows my mind that an illness that many experts agree is a response to childhood trauma has one of the largest stigmas attached to it. You hear some experts talk about how people with borderline are so difficult to deal with, but you don't hear what it's like to live with it. Who would want to admit that they live with it? Not many have stepped up and described the pain, the emptiness, the despair, and the feelings of isolation that come with it. Getting addicted to drugs was way too easy to do, but getting off of them was a whole different story. It started with alcohol as a teenager and went to marijuana when I was in my early college years. Being a drug addict in many ways was very effective in dealing with my trauma, until it wasn't. At some point, I lost complete control and began to lose myself in it. When I first got sober, all of the flashbacks and the pain that goes with them came rushing up to me all at once. I hit my breaking point and once again turned to drugs. I grabbed the only pills I could get my hands on. I didn't know the dosage, and I could have easily died in the emergency room. As I said earlier, we need to discuss the effects of CSA to get the public's attention and emphasize the urgency of preventing it. This doesn't just affect children for a day, a year. It sticks with them for their entire lifetime. My former psychiatrist told me what gets under her skin the most is CSA because of the long-term damage that it causes, especially if the child doesn't get professional help when they're young. It disrupts the flow of healthy development and can wreak havoc on your nervous system. There is no cure for dealing with CSA as an adult. You can learn to manage the symptoms, but I've been told many times by professionals that the flashbacks will probably never stop. It is not appropriate to speak of this in most circles, which can bring on deeply rooted shame and self-blame. So, what is the best way to prevent CSA? Age-appropriate education for children and all adults that come into contact with them. We also need to break the stigma attached to being a survivor, which brings nothing but shame. We need to talk about it enough in a way that is safe and age appropriate, where children and adults are not afraid to talk about it. Teaching boundaries around keeping secrets and appropriate touch will empower children to use their voice. Ignorance is a requirement for grooming to occur from both the children and the adults around them. I was very happy to hear that the preventative education is happening in some of the schools in Canada for both children and educators. However, there are a great number of school districts that are not doing this work. This education needs to be mandated and be taken one step further to include the parents. It is crucial for parents to know the process of grooming, signs of CSA, signs of a groomer, and how to handle disclosures. For the important highlights, you can find my preventative educational videos on YouTube at Alice Falling 15. You can also access the Canadian Centre for Child Protection Inc. website at www.protectchildren.ca.